today with our newest Arizona drag racing legend, Jack Dyer. Jack has got a great story. I mean, a racer, a promoter of drag racing for the sportsman people. Basically a gatekeeper, kept a lot of people at the track, and kept people interested in what he did, what we're doing. Welcome, Jack.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. So, where are you from?
Originally?
Yeah.
Patterson, New Jersey.
What exit? No.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. Yeah, that's where I grew up.
And when did you make your way to Arizona? How was your path to Arizona?
There was a big gap from there to here. I got married for the second time, and my wife was working for a company that was nationwide, and we were kind of fed up with the taxes and everything else in New Jersey. So she made a proposal to her company that she could do her job from anywhere in the country, and they gave her three choices, and one of them was here. And we were basically staying in New Jersey because my mother was still alive. When she passed away, my wife said to me, she said, "I was closer to your mother than I am to my own." She says, "We don't have to stay here anymore." So, long story short, in 1997, we picked up and moved everything here. Just glad I didn't get stopped on the road with the enclosed car carrier, because that would have been a mess.
You made it all the way out here.
Yeah, and immediately wanted to see where the drag strips were, and actually she came out before I did to see what it was like, because she had never been here, and I said, "Me neither." I said, "But I'll go anywhere you go." So she comes out and she said, I found two tracks that are almost the same distance from our house to the track itself, meaning at the time Firebird and Speed World. And her logic in it was that she says, well, Firebird's like Englishtown, Speed World's like where we used to race, which was Island Dragway in New Jersey. And I says, oh, one's homegrown and one's money grown. And that was basically the way it's situated. So first time I went out there, it was nice, homegrown and everything, and lo and behold, I met a bunch of nice people, and so everything moved forward from there.
You became an Arizonan.
Absolutely.
So going back, a question we always ask: what got you your passion going for cars?
Excuse me. It came from someone who I didn't know. My father died when I was 3, and he was an oval track racer. So when I got out of high school, I needed a job, and I went to work for the guy that he used to drive for. So I started to learn a lot of things, and the shop right across the street, it was a big U complex, and the guy across the street was drag racing. I said, "Boy, that's for me." I said, "I don't want to go and start racing something that I got to fix every week," because the guy who I was working for was still doing, straightening out bent rear end housings for some of the mod guys and stuff like that. So right off the bat, I was attracted to cars, period. It didn't matter what, where, or why. And, I was driving around on a little 6-cylinder car, and it wasn't fast, but I was having a heck of a good time. Took it to the drag strip and went down. I said, this is kind of cool. And so I fell off the mountain from there.
You slipped in the hole.
Yeah, gobbled me up.
What was your first race car?
Real race car?
Yeah. What's your first car? Any car you went to the races with? It could have been your.
Well, the one that I raced a lot was I bought a brand new '73 Plymouth Duster 340 car from the factory. Brought it home, took it apart, and ran it in stock eliminator. The problem at that time was that they didn't have like bracket racing. It wasn't, you weren't handicapped. They would have 5, 6, 7, 8 lanes at the track, and this would be A stock, B stock, C stock, and so forth. So you had to run through everybody that's in your class if you were going to win anything. So the thing I had going for me was the car was very consistent, and they still ran a handicap tree, but at the time, your dial-in was the national record. So if you couldn't run close to the record, you were first round runner-up. So I did real well with that car. Raced along the East Coast. Won the 1974 Fall Nationals at Englishtown with it. And at that time I was mad little kid from the jungle, from Patterson, and it was I don't need to be here anymore, and packed up all my crap and moved away. And, took the car with me, took the car back to stock and drove it cross country, you know, and figure, well, I might not set the world on fire, but I'm gonna have a good time doing it.
So you've been a Pentastar guy?
No.
Okay, so you've owned other cars besides it.
Yeah, actually, after that car, I had a 63 and a 64 Plymouth with a max wage in it. But those cars, even back then, you could build 2 Chevrolets for what you could buy, do a max wage car. So I was good friends with a guy who had, still has to this day, has A automatic cars back there. They were just sitting in his garage, and he showed me the way. And finally, I just said, you know, this is too rich for my blood. So I got out of it, and then later on, somebody came into. I went to work when I stopped working for the guy that my dad drove for. I went to work for a company that was in the same spot for like since the 40s, and every new owner just took over from the other guy. So I went to work for him, and this was over the fender stuff, cams, headers, distributors, carburetors, you know. So we were doing a lot of things for the quote unquote street racers. But I had a car that I was taking to the drag strip at the time, and it was just a bracket car. But before I was going to sell something to somebody to put on their car, we would try it on our car, see how it worked, what didn't work, and a lot of people were grateful for that. So I went bracket racing, and I wound up, I had a interruption in my drag racing career. I've got severe rheumatoid and osteoarthritis, and my legs have gotten real bad. So I couldn't stay away from the track, so I got friendly with the people that owned Island Dragway in Great Meadows, New Jersey. And they said, well, why don't you come and work for us until you're ready to do something again? I said, well, I can't be on my feet all day. No. We want you to be the starter. We're going to put a stool out by the starting line. You can call up the dial-ins on your headset. Somebody else will mop up and do everything else. And I said, are you sure that's going to be okay? And he said, the only thing we want to see you do is have a good race. And if you get mad at somebody, when you holler at them, make sure everybody can hear it so they don't try it again.
Make example of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, thankfully, after that, I started to feel better. A friend of mine was building a rear-engine dragster, and I sat in it, and boy, this would be great. But he had a partner, and my knees were too bad. I couldn't get in and out, so went back to a door car. Had quite a lot of success back in the East Coast because we were back there, and we didn't move out here, like I said, until '97. But when we got out here, the first comment from my wife Diane was, well, now we can race all year round. I said, I don't think so.
Well, believe it or not, Jack, back in the day, and there was a time back in the day I thought I'd never say back in the day, but I do. We used to race through the summertime.
Yeah.
We start late at night, and you know, tracks like Beeline, and back in the day it was Phoenix Dragway.
Yeah.
And it was cool. I mean, it cooled off at night. And now the problem is that as more people moved out here, it didn't cool off as much. So
Yeah.
we get us older people kind of laugh at it and go, "Yeah, we're out there in the middle of summertime." But we had come to think of it, we didn't really start doing anything until the sun went down. So.
Yeah.
But now I can understand that, especially being from New Jersey.
Oh yeah, well, you know, when we got involved with ADRA, the Arizona Drag Racing Association, the first thing I said is, we are not racing in July and August. I said, you can drag me anywhere you want, but I said, I am not going to be there. So slowly but surely, I instilled in all the racers, I said, hey, I live back in New Jersey. We stopped racing the beginning of November. You didn't race again until the first weekend in March. That was our winter. That's when we did everything on our cars and refreshed everything. You got the same thing here, but it's the summer months. Mm-hmm. Do you want to go out there in a 5-layer suit in July? Or would you prefer to be working in your air-conditioned garage, getting the car ready for when September rolls around? So they got very used to it. And it's a funny thing. But if you're against something and you find out that it turns out good, all of a sudden you like it.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes you just have to get people to listen and understand. I seem to remember that a couple associations would started their series in the fall and ended up in the spring.
Yep.
Race for the winter. You know, that does make sense, but it's kind of hard to have a race car when you really want to go running, and even the tracks will say, "Oh, we're not open." You know.
Well, from years past, I mean, if they can get the track to work, that's fine. But as soon as it gets hot and sticky, you're going to ball it all up. The tires and everything nowadays are so much better than they ever were, and the tracks had to keep up with it.
Yep, exactly. I remember when the excitement of a concrete starting pad with Firebird when they first opened up, and I went to Speed Shop back in the day, and everybody was all upset about it, saying, "It's going to break rear ends," and I'm going, "Yeah, baby." I miss a lot of ring and pinions and stuff. And, it's just always the weakest link. As the technology kept moving forward, would find the weakest link.
Oh, sure.
But ultimately it was the right thing to do. So you moved to Arizona. You're racing. You're having a good time. And what's some of your good memories and of being here when you got out here? What was your first thoughts? First time you went to the track, because it's always different from where you were.
I was amazed because it was wide open spaces. And the other thing that amazed me was the first time I went out, back east you've got a problem with Mopar stuff with big rust issues. I went out to the drag strip for bracket race, and there's a Belvedere, there's a Dart. I'm like, holy cow. I had to take pictures to send my buddy back east. He says, if you see this, you let me know.
Yeah, we don't like that, all the people stealing our Arizona cars, but it does happen.
Yeah. So I started racing, and the people were a little standoffish, maybe partly to me, because if I was with somebody and I needed something done, I wasn't shy about hollering out to them to do something, and people might have taken that the wrong way, that, grumpy guy from back east. Well, if I'm in the middle of doing something, I'll talk to you when I'm done.
Well, it's a different lifestyle, and that's why you talk to each other back there.
Yep.
Forget about it.
Yep.
It was good though, but I'm excited to hear that you transitioned well though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. My wife would be first one to tell you that it took a while, but it was like a different person, because I was very reserved compared to what I used to be. Not very reserved, but calmer, I guess you would say. And it just made it easy. And getting first thing was getting involved in the people at Speed World and how great they were. Victoria and Brian Griffey and Joe Coletti and all the people that were out there at that time, and they never treated me anything but right. Granted, I never pissed them off. So.
Yeah, I think that with that group, you would have known if you had. No, they're all good people. There's a lot of good memories out there. That track, nothing lasts forever, but a lot of great members over the years for sure. So you raced there mainly, or did you go with like team Speed World to any events, or?
I went with the team Speed World to the bracket finals and stuff like that, but I didn't. I raced one time down at Firebird, and it just happened to be before we got involved in running ADRA. Somebody else was running it, and I was just like, I got to be crazy, because it's a July night, and they're getting ready. They're taking money, and I'm looking at the temperature, and I got to be out of my friggin' mind. Now, mind you, I've never been down this track. I never saw this track before. So I rode down through the pits to find out where the ticket booth was and everything, and drove back to my trailer. And I come out to make my first time run, and I'm shaking my head. I couldn't do that anymore. They had a Christmas tree that was hanging by wires from the side. And I ran somebody who I knew real well from out here, and I stopped at his pit afterwards, and he says, what the heck is that? Well, they got to move it because they run road course up here. I said, that is the strangest thing I have ever seen in my life, a hanging tree.
It also kept people from running over the tree when they had launched wrong.
Yep.
But it was different, that's for sure.
So I didn't, I didn't, like my wife had said, it was more like an English town, and I didn't really like the people in English town, so automatically to go race at Firebird, they had to beat out the people that were at English town for me to like them.
Well, there was definitely, people that were Firebird racers and people that were Speed World racers, and some people would go back and forth. But overall, Speed World had a very loyal fan base and racers and spectators and such. It was a sportsman racers
Yes.
track. When I remember when back before Bob Curley came out and he started running the track, and
Yep.
I went out to look what's going on. He rode up here. Who are you? What are you doing here? Explained who I was, and again, but he put all the trees in and he made it more of a friendly.
Oh, sure.
It really was a great place to race. So, how long when did you make the transition from racing to the Arizona Drag Racing Association, the ADRA?
Well, it wasn't really a transition. It was just something that was added on because I didn't stop
Okay.
racing.
Okay.
It had to be in 2001 or 2002, and I was racing with ADRA. I was a member, and we had our meeting down at JB's on I-17 in Indian School, and I'm sitting with a bunch of folks, and they come in to run the meeting, and me, big mouth that I am, I raised my hand, and they said, well, it's November. I said, you got a schedule for next year? So the guys that were running the club at the time looked at me and they said, no, we don't. I don't think we're going to do this anymore. Why don't you run the club? And I was like, what the heck just happened here? And I was like everybody else that raced with the club. I didn't know anything other than show up, give them my money, tell me who I'm going to be paired with, and let's race. I didn't know anything about what went on behind the scenes or anything. And then I come to find out, as we took it over, that for some reason ADRA had garnered a very poor reputation with all of the tracks. So I said, well, we've been racing at Speed World. I might as well go there and talk to these people and see what they think. So Joe Coletti, God rest his soul, we go up and he says, well, Victoria will help you make a schedule, whatever you need. And he said, by the way, I said, yes. Well, he was privileged information that somebody had taken off with all the money that ADRA had in the bank. So ADRA had no money to do anything. Couldn't buy decals, couldn't buy pens. And Joe Coletti said, you run your races first Friday of every week, or whatever you want to do it. And as long as it's a Friday, you come out here and you run your race under ADRA separate from our regular race that night. And for everybody that comes through the gate on an ADRA night, whether they're a racer, spectator, whatever, we'll give $1 back to the club for everyone that comes through the gate.
Very generous.
That was what kept us from going belly up.
The ADRA, we were talking earlier before we started filming, that many of us, were members at one time, and had a lot of great people running it over the years. And I'm sure that, really grateful that you took the time to take the lead on the deal. Is there any history written on the ADRA anywhere, or you have a general idea who was president when, or have you tried to?
Not really. I imagine that if I tried real hard, I could get enough people. But it was everyone that I've spoken to, it seems like the leadership changed very often back then.
It was a I think a 1 year or 2 year voted in, and so it was like Bud Pickens and Sid Reed and some different people I remember back in the day were running it, but it was like
every 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years, and then that offices like the secretary treasurer or whatever. But it was still it was a big deal, and they did a lot of stuff of promoting drag racing besides just the races to get people off the street to go drag racing and such. So you what type? How and when did you decide? When did you stop racing?
When did I stop racing?
When was the time you said okay?
It was I was forced to stop drag racing. I had no intention of stopping. We had 2 race cars. My wife raced, I raced. And I woke up one morning and I couldn't get out of bed. And my wife comes and, let me help you. What do you need? I says, I don't know. I'm laying, my legs are on the floor off the edge of the bed, and I can't get the upper part of my body to move. And I said, let me lay here for a little bit and it'll be okay. Well, long story short, what had happened was from rheumatoid arthritis, the vertebrae in my neck had collapsed onto my spinal cord. So they said, there's no no ifs, ands, or buts. You've got to have surgery. He said, and the surgeon said, I got to warn you. I said, okay. He said, the best we can ask for is that you get through the surgery, you don't have a lot of pain, but you will not be able to move your head up and down or side to side ever again. That's the best. And I said, and the worst is, number one, you could die on the operating table. And number two, you could wind up being paralyzed. So being a smart ass, I said, well, let's go for number one then. And that was March of 2021. And
So you ran the association the whole time.
up until about a year before that. And I was just, when I had the surgery, I said, oh, my neck don't move, that's good. Because I got used to doing this.
Right.
And I said, well, that doesn't mean anything. I can still drive. I'll do everything, right? The doctor brought tears to my eyes and my wife's eyes because he was about ready to release us from his care from the neck. And I said, okay, when can I drive? And he said, never. He said, I'm not concerned that you could not do it. He said, my concern is that if somebody hits you while you're driving and you're not supported, or if you hear loud noises and you have to suddenly turn your head, he said, you've got plates, screws, and rods going from your head down into your neck. If you could snap one thing, all bets are off. So that was forced retirement.
Well, I'm going to say that that's a tough decision or tough thing to happen, especially for somebody with the passion that you have for racing. But it's sure good to have you here.
I appreciate that.
You know,
yeah, I raced.
As my friend Bill Gusick says, you're still sucking air.
Well, you know, I raced for 50 years.
Yeah.
And I mean, on a grand scale, I mean, out here, we put together, you know, the names on the side of our cars were just plain ugly all the time. Well, we had the one that we were racing on a regular basis, and Island Dragway was having their 50th anniversary. And I'm just like, geez, that's a long way to tow a race car. And we talked about it, and she says, well, why don't you go and I'll fly out on the weekend, you can drive there and we'll meet you. I said, well, I don't know. And smart ass that she is, she looks at me and she says, do you think you're going to be around for their second 50th anniversary?
She sounds like a great person, and she knows exactly when to place the boot on the backside for you. And we're all blessed to have somebody like that.
She is, without a doubt, the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah, God bless her.
So I towed all the way back to New Jersey.
Yeah.
And was received like you couldn't believe. You know, I mean, I raced at that same track. I started racing at that track in 1971. And I raced up until the time we moved out here in 97. So I knew a lot of people, and people were just like shaking their head. They saw the car and they shook their head, and then they stopped because I was parked right near a walkway where you would come in the track and you had to go over this little creek and to get to the real pits. Well, I parked in the grass on the side of the creek with the car roll out in the open, didn't say anything to anybody. And everybody and their brother saw the car and locked up the trailers and jumped out of the car. Holy crap!
Yeah, good to see old friends, and they're still. It's a great thing about drag racing; they're still your friends.
Oh yeah, yeah. But that was why I had to stop. I never, and to reinforce the reason behind them telling me that I couldn't drive anymore, my wife we still had her race car, and it was sitting on a trailer. And we decided we're going to sell it. And I said, well, this thing's been sitting a long time. We need to, if anything, not drive it, roll it off the trailer into the garage, and let's make sure, you know, we turn the fuel pump on and it doesn't start fuel leaks everywhere under the sun. So we tried to start it, and sure enough, one of the needle and seats hung up in the carburetor, and I got Mount Vesuvius under the hood, something that takes 15 minutes to fix. Well, because of my neck and my other things, an hour and a half later, I had it done, because you don't realize how much you move that little bit up and down to try and see things. And I mean, I've been through it. She's been through it with me. I had 17 operations caused by arthritis. So anybody that ever tells me that arthritis isn't bad, I say, wait a minute, let me go get my bat.
Yeah, I'll give you a little pain right now. So I got a question. Back in New Jersey,
Okay.
What were the speed shops back then?
Van Eiderstein was a big one. J&F Speed Shop. Oh God, what was the other guy? He's got one out of left field. There was a Rogers Speed Shop in South Jersey, but it was odd because even well up until a couple of years before we left back there, you went to the speed shops for everything.
Right.
Not necessarily to install, but you know they had a lot of inventory at the time, and a lot of it was out of the American Racing Warehouse Joe Amato's group in Pennsylvania. You know, one day you'd have something. Keystone. And all of a sudden, here comes Summit Racing Equipment. And I had a customer, and I said, well, we got to do this. I said, I'll call and see when I can get it. He says, go, hold on a minute, let me make a call. He makes a call, and he says, how's tomorrow? I said, what are you talking about? Summit's got it in stock. I overnighted it. It'll be here tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, boy, are things changing. And we had partial sponsorship from a company called Peak Performance. It was young guys that just got into it, and I didn't ask them to give me any money, but they gave me parts at cost. I said, you know, I can't go wrong, unless it's the wrong part.
Well, the Van Eiderstein, I in my career in the performance aftermarket, I met several people that's how they cut their teeth, and they went to work for different manufacturers and stuff. But that was the place that, you know, for a lot of people.
They had 3 stores back then.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
So you're here today, and you're blessing with your presence.
And I don't know about that.
Oh, I think so. It's good. I mean, I knew about you, but I didn't know you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people that know you learn some more.
Mm-hmm.
And you're genuine. You're definitely legendary.
I don't know about that.
Oh, come on. Yeah, you are.
I'm in nobody's Hall of Fame. I said to somebody once, I said, most people get put in the Hall of Fame when they die.
Yeah. Or you get put in the Hall of Fame before you die, then everybody thinks you're dead.
Yeah.
So it's not always a good thing. You know, it's really, Jack, it's really good to have you here.
Thank you.
And thank you for being a reinvented Arizona drag racing legend after you moved, and also being a New Jersey drag racing legend. And it's great to have you here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.